luminaries in e-discovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal-Brainspace, the industry's leading AI e-discovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to Watch Me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in e-discovery. Thank you for tuning in.
Good morning and welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, Senior Vice President of Brand Awareness at Reveal, and a host from my third day now of podcasts from ILTACON at National Harbor in Maryland. Typically, we held an episode each Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in e-discovery and related areas. This week, we are broadcasting or streaming live from ILTACON. Past episodes are available on reveal.com. Go to revealdata.com. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. My guest this morning is Saleem Dababneh. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Oasis. He joined Oasis as COO in 2017, joining Brandon Law, who is COO and co-founder, and his younger brother, Jacob Dababneh, as the only vendor-to-the-vendor in the industry at that time, and still today, right?
Correct.
In addition to leading Oasis's daily operations, he manages the company's partnerships, its technical teams for support, internal development, information security, and information technology. Saul has over 20 years of experience in legal technology. I got a chance to, and we'll go into this, meet him when he was just starting out. He's got over 20 years experience leading teams and large-scale restructuring efforts in software development. In previous years, he's served as consultant to numerous Fortune Global 2000 companies, drawing on his knowledge in data analytics, e-discovery, incident response, computer forensics, and information security management systems. Throughout his career, he's focused on continuing education, earning over a dozen certificates in e-discovery himself. I don't have a dozen certificates. While advocating for standards of professional growth in the industry. This year also marks his 10th year of being a certified e-discovery specialist, or ACEDS. Sal, welcome.
Thanks, George.
Happy to have you here.
Likewise. Always great to visit with you.
Well, I'd like to start with the path you've taken, the path to get to e-discovery, to the position you've had, and perhaps a bit earlier in that path as well. So if you could tell us.
I appreciate that, George. Yeah, I was thinking before I came on about my path and kind of how I've gotten to where I am today. I just can't help but think of the many people who've been there to kind of help guide me along the way. It just, as life goes, you have to learn from others and lean on others. And, my experience as a young child was, I ended up being a high school runaway at 16 years old. Not because I was looking for trouble, but because I was trying to get away from, a troubled home and trying to look for the opportunity to just keep growing and focusing on my own personal education. Having grown up in Canada, it's a bit of a gray area, so you could actually leave home at 16. But what you find when you leave home is you need people's help.
Yeah.
And so, since that age, I've realized I've had to lean on others.
So when you left home from Canada, where did you go to?
Well, so when I initially left home, for the first little while, I lived in Canada still. There's a gray area in Canada. You can leave home at 16, but you're technically still under your parents' guardianship till you're 18.
Okay.
And so I left home and I continued to go to school. And, my father was trying to kind of force me to come back home. And, the invitations weren't working. And so he finally called the school, and he still had parental guardianship, even though I legally could be out on my own. So he called the school and told them, withdrew parental consent for any activities. And to me, that meant I couldn't play football anymore, or play sports.
And you can't tell because we're sitting side to side, but Sal is substantially taller than I am. I would never have been a football player.
Right.
You were already at that height or close to it at
actually,
that time?
interestingly enough, when I was entering my freshman year, I was 6'1",
Uh-huh.
which I'm just barely over that today.
Yep.
But I was maybe 115 pounds.
Oh.
So I was a rail, but I was always
Yeah.
pretty tall. I always
Okay.
looked older than I was. And so, I found when I ended up being 16, a lot of people thought I was older than I actually was.
Yeah.
Which worked to my advantage because, I never ran into a situation where I was taken advantage of by others, which is great. I'm so, looking back, it's certainly not a path I would encourage others to try.
It's certainly not the standard route.
It certainly isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I realized quickly in that situation is you're going to have to learn from others and lean on others.
So you left home.
Yeah.
You
Left
were
home.
in Canada.
Yep.
Then where?
So then I ended up traveling. So having been born in the United States, I was actually a landed immigrant in Canada. I decided, the way to get back to be able to play sports was I've got to move back to the States. So at almost 17 years old, I packed up my motorcycle, a duffel bag, and I went across the border back into the United States and moved to Arizona. I was going to move to Florida because I had been there before. I liked it, and I knew I could ride my motorcycle year round.
It was a destination you knew.
It's a destination I knew. And maybe a few months before I actually left, I met a couple of guys who were from Arizona. And in my mind, Arizona was just pure desert.
Yep.
But they talked about kind of the East Valley of Phoenix area and encouraged me to check that out. I really had no ties to either Florida or Arizona, so I didn't care.
One place was as good as another.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I ended up moving out to Arizona. So it was
to the East Valley area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this guy had told me, hey, you should go to, and he was from Tempe and spoke about ASU, but he said, if you want to go to a community that's good, strong community, go to Gilbert, Arizona.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Yeah, Gilbert. You didn't know Gilbert.
17-year,
anything,
I didn't
right?
know.
Yeah.
I didn't mind. I was like, all right. So that's where I ended up going. So I charted a course. I went to AAA. So back in the day, you remember, to get your path to somewhere you hadn't been, you go visit AAA, you get a map, and they'll highlight the route for you.
Did this. They'd give you an overall map, but they did almost like a flip chart.
They did,
right?
Right, which is super helpful. So I had a little magnetic holder for maps on my motorcycle tank, and I would slide in the first page, and I'd go as far as I could, and flip the page, and keep going. And that was
Google Maps long before Google Maps.
Exactly. So it was a fun experience. I certainly wouldn't recommend it again to anybody, but I made it, and I said along the way, people have always been super helpful, and it taught me a lot about how the world works. And really, it's not always about what you know, but it's about the people around you and learning to lean on them, and then find ways to give back. And
so that's still a long distance between football, in Gilbert, Arizona, and eDiscovery.
Right. Yeah.
What came next in that?
Well, interestingly enough, during my time playing football, I met a few friends who I leaned on. We went through graduation and then into college, and then one of my friend's older brothers worked for Pitney Bowes.
Okay.
So he was in the industry, and he knew I was looking for opportunities, and so he hooked me up with a group in Arizona that was kind of a regional copy shop.
Okay.
So the traditional copy shop, and I went to work. I got my first taste of eDiscovery.
So many people are in our industry. Started out by hauling around boxes.
Hauling around boxes in Phoenix, Arizona, summer heat, wearing a suit.
Yeah.
And so it was a great experience. I had grown up in a home where there's a lot of tech usage. My dad was an IBMer.
Okay.
So I was very familiar and comfortable with computers. So when I came into eDiscovery, well, at the time it was really just litigation paper copy.
Right. Yeah. There was Discovery, but there wasn't an E on it.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So I just noticed a tremendous amount of inefficiency. And so looking at what people were doing and looking at the options, I was quickly motivated to try and encourage people to start using more tech.
Okay.
Just because it was an opportunity.
So what tech were you encouraging them to use in that?
So early on, a lot of what we were doing was paperwork, but I would encourage the law firms, why don't you try scanning? Why don't you try We had premium scan from iPro, or
Mhm.
scan it to disk, put it
And
on your
iPro was
computer and
right
search.
there.
It was right in
anyway.
town.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, I had the benefit when I came on at Apex of learning from some industry veterans.
Mhm.
I met on my first week on the job, I met Terry Tipton, who spent a tremendous amount of time.
Wonderful.
Amazing
And
educator.
happily retired now.
Yep.
But yeah,
Deservedly
wonderful.
so.
I used to
And
get such phenomenal customer support from Terry.
always. Everybody knew you call Terry, you'll get your answers. And that's what's so great. She spent her whole career just educating and helping others.
Mhm.
I met Jay Lieb, and he was so helpful. And it's great. Just over the
He
years.
was a great colleague to have now.
Absolutely for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very lucky. And then, I started learning about Socha and Gelbin and things you were doing. And I was learning from people like Sarah Sims Thompson, who was at Data Flight at the time, Accordance, and Reem Safori, who was over at Summation, and a whole host of others who just I admired. Steve Moore was in Phoenix as well, and Steve was very big proponent of out there teaching the community, the user base, how to use technology. I still remember my first legal tech. Steve Moore's walking down the corridor, and I kind of went up to him as a starry-eyed little kid, and hey, I'm Saleem Dababneh. Really nice. I want to be like you when I grow up. It's one of those moments.
Right.
I look back, I kind of chuckle. But Steve and I became fast friends, and
he was very gracious about it.
He was, even though he was a competitor. He was very gracious about it. And throughout my career, Steve has been somebody I could lean on and talk to. He's constantly, checking in on me. And
great. Yeah.
It's those types of people who have just really helped me stay in the industry, because things can be challenging and tough.
It can be a very demanding space to be in.
And so there's just been so many people along the way that I've had the opportunity to learn from. And that's what's really gotten me to where I am today. I've met Brandon Law, who's also a big advocate of continuing education and learning. He and I are now business partners at Oasis, and that's been just a fantastic opportunity for me. But one of the things I've looked for through my career is, where can I go to learn from others? I've had opportunities presented to me, come work here. And one of the biggest evaluators I've always applied to, where to go next. Who am I going to learn from when I go there? I'm constantly looking for that growth opportunity. I didn't have opportunity to, follow a traditional path of going to high school, going to college, graduating college, going to work. And so I actually didn't go and finish college until I went back to college when I was 36.
But you finished.
But I finished.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know from experiences with coworkers, just how challenging that can be if you haven't followed that path, and how daunting it can be to go back, stay in, and ultimately get through.
Yeah, and that was one of those lifelong goals. I'd always known I wanted to go back to school, but I'd gotten to a point in my career I was having great success, and the question was, well, why do it?
And so why did you do it?
It was a goal. It was something that, it dates back to when I left home. When I left home, my father was, a challenging person. He was the best person on the planet when he was sober, but when he was drunk, he was just a very challenging person. One of the things he said to me when I left home was, "You'll never make it without me." Kind of one of those things. You'll never amount to anything. And
many of us have gotten some form of that message somewhere along the way, haven't we?
And so it's one of those things where I was like, I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna keep trying. And so when the opportunity came, it was at a challenging time. I'm at home at the time. We had 4 kids when I started back at college. By the time I finished, we were at 5. We're at 6 now. We're done. We're done at 6.
As we were chatting earlier, and I said, okay, we got 3 kids.
Right.
As far as I can tell, however many, and I know it doesn't apply once you hit 6, but however many you have, one more seems impossibly daunting, and one less. Well, what's the problem here?
Right.
Not so much with 6, right?
I think my wife realized once we got past 3, it was kind of like it was a crapshoot at that point anyway.
So how do you navigate that? 6 kids.
It's a lot of teamwork. So my wife and I, early on, we both came from bigger families. Excuse me. So we knew this was something we wanted to do together. And early on, she decided she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. we were going to be a single income family, and so we made life choices based on that.
And you planned accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's worked out very well.
Yep.
The e-discovery industry provides so much opportunity for those who are willing to work hard and help solve problems. And I've had great success just by applying a ton of grit and tenacity.
How do you manage 6 kids?
That's a team effort, 100%. And not just my wife and I, but that's involving family and community. Excuse me. So, that management process you learn a lot from it.
You said something earlier about, I forget what the phrase you used was, situational.
Yeah, situational awareness, right?
Yeah.
And that's,
So explain that.
It's a phrase we use with our kids, and it's something I've used for myself. Again, going from being a high school runaway, not really having somewhere to call home, you lean on others, and a lot of people are giving to you and help. A lot of people are very helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a lot of ways to give back. So one thing I was constantly doing is trying to find, how can I serve back those who are helping me? And as we started raising our kids, a phrase I use with them and with the youth sports kids that I coach is I'll say the phrase situational awareness. And to my kids, that's a trigger of like, get your head up, look around, who can you help? There's something going on around you that you could be pitching in. And so now it boiled it down to, my oldest son uses it a lot with the other kids. He'll say something like situational awareness when maybe mom's walking in the door with groceries. The kids immediately will look up and, I can be helping mom with groceries, or I can be, maybe the dog wants to go out of the house, whatever it is. Just that phrase immediately triggers a response from our kids and our family of, pick your head up, look around, offer help.
So you said this is something you've used not just at home, but with the kids you coach and at work as well.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And so I don't use that phrase at work. That's kind of a family motto, maybe, or
but
family phrase.
You apply the same
but
concept.
I apply the same concept for sure. And that's one of the greatest things about being where I am today at Oasis. As a vendor to the vendors, our whole focus is on how can we empower our partners. So we're focused on serving them.
Yeah, talk a bit about what Oasis is,
and
who you are, what you do there, all of that.
Yeah, all credit to Brandon Law on this idea. Others had tried, and I'd seen, other folks talk about being vendor to the vendor. Many of them were still competing with their customer base.
Always a challenging situation.
A very challenging situation. Which I can understand the economics of it. You kind of need to drive business however you can early on.
Yeah.
Brandon stayed committed very purely to the theme of vendor to the vendors, and really trying to focus on how can we be an aid and not compete, not step on toes. And so from its infancy, at Oasis, we don't offer competing services with our partners. We're not out there selling against them. We're basically everything we do is focus on how can we grow their business. Me, it was a situational awareness moment. It's like, how can you help? And I would walk in, and there's a paralegal, working through red wells and boxes, and I'm thinking this is so much easier if you use tech. And so I would spend the time and teach them how to use summation, or how to use concordance, or how to use iConnect. And spend the extra time. Now, as a sales rep, which is what I was early on, sales manager wasn't a huge fan of that. I was like, what are you doing? You need to be out meeting other people. But what I realized early on is if you help others, which had been,
they'll remember.
They will remember you, and they'll pay it back. And so I quickly, within I think 6 to 8 months of being at Apex, where I got my start, with people like Dave Tiller and Damon Caduto and others who are still in the industry. I had the opportunity to kind of teach others how to use tech. It drove business sales that direction. It helped the company grow. That's how I met Jay Lee. We picked up things like Discovery Cracker, and I flew out to Florida and got training. It was awesome. And then the other sales reps started calling on me to go help their customers because they saw the benefit. And so at 23 years old, or however, 24-ish, I went back to my leadership at Apex, Dave, and I said, I don't want to be in sales anymore. I think you guys need me covering tech. You need me helping here, and here's why. And I explained kind of the ROI and the business idea of you need somebody who's going to be an advocate for tech to help grow your customers, create a differentiator in your community. And
that was rather, I don't know what the right word is, not brazen, not forward, brave of someone at 24.
It was. Luckily, I was in a place. Dave Tiller was always a great mentor. He stayed a close friend, even when we moved on and parted ways and became competitors. But he had such an open way of inviting that type of creative thinking and opportunity mindset.
Yeah.
And so, so when I still remember the conversation I had with Dave Tiller. It was one of the best, most epic conversations I've had with anybody, but it was a 2-hour conversation where I was trying to convince him that eventually I would make more money doing computer nerd stuff and tech versus being in sales.
Being on the streets.
And he's doing all the math of commissions and salaries and versus what I'd get paid. And it's literally, I took a pay cut because I knew that was my passion.
And sometimes
you have
to
to
get
take
here,
that step back.
you got to come down here first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I took that step back, and I got very familiar with all the tech that was available at the time, and have made that a continuous focus. Like was mentioned, many certs. I didn't see them as a way to kind of bolster myself, but really just to help those around me. Go learn about these different tools, figure out what's the best medley of tools. And then go help your community. And that's, today that's the mindset of Oasis. That was so attractive to me when Brandon talked about me joining Oasis. That's what I saw.
You described earlier a couple of times Oasis as a vendor to the vendors. What does that phrase mean?
So our focus, like I said, is on how can we serve the vendor community. Brandon, when we were at, we actually spent some time together at iPro. I was product director for eCapture, and he worked on the professional services side. And one thing we both noticed was every time the software got deployed, the challenges weren't necessarily with the software, but a lot of times with the environment and the infrastructure and the workflows. And to really help people optimize, you had to educate them. And that's a tough sell. As a software company, Reveal deals with that constantly. Every software company deals with it. There's a lot of educating you have to do. So Brandon recognized that there's a lot of vendors who are very good with relationships, very good at kind of finding opportunities, but they were struggling mightily with the tech. And so the whole vendor-to-vendor concept was, why don't you give us, we'll deal with the infrastructure, we'll deal with the security, we'll deal with all the different softwares, we'll become the software experts. You guys go focus on the relationships, go focus on what's happening in your markets, and let us serve you. And vendors, it's very refreshing for them because most of the time they're grinding and looking for somebody to give them just attention to start. And so having somebody who's serving their needs was just a welcome change for a lot of them, and not being in a competitive stance. There's a lot of big companies out there today who offer similar solutions to Oasis, but then they're out competing with you as well. And that's a tough,
whole different situation.
It is, right? And so it was very attractive when Brandon built this concept. So I encouraged him. Actually, when he started, he called me and said, hey, I want to go start this. Let's go do it together. I had a bit of investment with iPro, so I was like, I can't go now, but I introduced him to my younger brother, who was much more technical. And I thought, you know what? Brandon and I are a little more similar than Jacob and Brandon are. Jacob's more tech leaning. And so it was a great pairing.
Gave a balance that way.
It did. And then I continued from the sidelines, watched both Jacob and Brandon grow Oasis. And then when the iPro transaction happened, where it was my opportunity.
Gave you the freedom to move on.
Exactly. And so it was, and I love what they're doing, and the partnerships they have are fantastic. Very solid partnerships, because Oasis is constantly looking for how can we help our partners with their workflow, with the tech. We're providing a variety of solutions, solving for the infrastructure, solving for security, which is a continuous growing need.
Only going to be a bigger challenge.
That was the first thing I noticed when I came to Oasis was a lot of the RFPs shifted from being about feature functionality to very heavy about security. That was about 2017. And I noticed that, and I talked to Brandon, I said, you know what we need to do? We really need to just dial in quickly and heavily on the certifications for ISO 27017.
So you must have
and
all of those things then.
And so I took what I applied to myself.
That's
was a lot of certs.
Path to get there.
It is. But it served me well. That it helped me in my career by learning from others and getting certs. It establishes a bit of trust with those who you're serving. And so like that same model could certainly work for the business, and it
Right.
has. It's worked really well.
Good.
Yeah. And so it's been a constant thing about situational awareness and learning.
Mhm.
And, as I've come to things like ILTA, I was talking to you, we have one of our new members of our team mentioned at the reveal party the other night,
Good.
how do you know all these people? I'm like, it's years of just being aware of those around you.
Yep.
Looking for opportunities to meet people, but also help others.
And to re-meet people,
Exactly.
to see them,
Yeah.
not just meet them once, but
Right.
again and
Absolutely.
again and again.
Yeah. I think about my first interactions with you, meeting you at it was an e-discovery conference in Florida, and you were on a panel, and you were gracious enough afterwards to spend a few minutes talking with me and another gentleman. And I was, I think 24, 25 at the time, and you had already established yourself as an industry leader then. But you were so gracious to spend the time and answer questions and have a dialogue that was impactful for me.
Well, I've had so many
you've done
help
so many.
me along the
Yeah.
way. I feel, I owe it to
Right.
others to
Yeah.
help them as well. And besides, it's just the right thing to do.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I saw, I think David Cohen posted yesterday on LinkedIn. He talked about there's so many new faces. And I think David put it as, I don't recognize a lot of these people.
Right.
Well, it's an opportunity for those of us who've been at this for a while to look around. Who can we help? Who can we lift up?
Yep.
All tides rise together, and so I get excited about that. For those who are out at ILTA, if you see me, don't be afraid to come up. If you haven't met me before, come talk.
Right.
See how we can help you. Talk to George. He's always so helpful. There's so many people who are just willing to help. And it, to me, it always warms my heart when people are helping each other from competitive landscapes. We had a few events this week as Oasis, and we open our doors to everybody, even the competitors who are in our space. And
we might be competitors today, but that doesn't
You're
necessarily mean we're competitors tomorrow.
especially in this industry.
Yeah.
That's what I mentioned to Rachel as well at the reveal party we were at. So all these different people, I'm like, a lot of them have moved different parts. Some have been on the vendor side, some moved to the law firm side, some go to corporate, some go into development, some go into education.
Right.
And there's opportunities everywhere around. So it's just being mindful and aware of those things. It's fantastic. I love
situational awareness.
It is,
Once again. Yes.
And it reminds me of when ACEDS kind of launched their certification process. I was excited about that because I was constantly looking for educational opportunities. And what I saw in ACEDS was a true certification that was not focused on software specific, but on industry.
And
I love that.
software specific certifications can be great.
They're
They have their
fantastic.
place, but
Having the
it's
overall,
not sufficient.
yeah,
You need
correct.
that broader.
I love the
version as
test.
well.
I remember walking away from the test. It's a 4-hour test, and I used every minute of it because as I was doing the test, I was like, I was loving the questions. A lot of, problem solving and thinking questions.
So
and,
I got a challenge for you then.
yeah, go ahead.
You don't have to take me up on this.
Okay.
But there is now a Canadian version
Oh, is there?
of the ACEDS test.
Interesting.
So you can get the Canadian ACEDS certification.
That
Just,
would be cool. That would
park
be.
that thought in the
There
back
you go.
of your
Give me
head.
another reason to get back
That's-
home and
that's right.
go visit family.
Yep.
That's great. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
It's been out for, I don't remember, 6 months maybe?
Okay. Yeah.
Something like that.
Very
Maybe
good.
not even.
I didn't realize that. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's the first foray outside of the U.S.
Good.
and that
It's needed.
fashion, recognizing that much of the ACEDS exam
Yeah.
focuses on the U.S. legal system.
100%. Yeah.
Might be of interest
It's a
at
touch of
some
international
level
law.
if you're in Canada, for
Yeah.
example, but you got to work in the Canadian court systems, not
Yeah.
the U.S. court
Very different
systems.
system. Well, the UK, that would be a welcome thing there as well.
I think most likely there are others in the works.
Yeah, that's
Well,
fantastic.
we have the U.S. one and the Canadian
Oh wow, that's a
one.
good challenge because I haven't spent time in the Canadian court system, so that would be a lot of learning, which I love.
Yeah.
That's something Brandon's so good about continually pushing me and
Mhm.
others at Oasis to keep learning. Our whole bonus structure at Oasis is around education. We don't bonus people on performance.
But
We
on
do,
education.
we do obviously send bonuses and people are doing
Yeah.
a great job and stepping up,
Yeah.
going above and beyond. But the official bonus plan is all about certifications and education and continuous learning.
Okay.
So we give people a list. Here's a list of certifications, and we assign values to those. We'll encourage the employees to take those. We'll pay for them to go take the exams, and then we bonus them when they achieve those certifications.
That's wonderful.
And it's
Yeah.
it's a mindset of learning with the idea that we're going to help others. So it's great.
Well, Sal, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure,
Yep.
George.
Saleem Dababneh is Director Customer Success at Oasis. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Thank you all very much. Sal,
Thanks so much, George.